Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back.
What's happening? What's happening, y'all? This is Up to It.
Man, we got a good one. We're calling this one Up to It. I got it up here on in StreamYard, Up to It and Friends, but I was like, Dad, you know what? That don't roll off the tongue. I think it's Up to It and the Bruz today.
And the
It's Up to It
bruh.
and the Bruz today,
You know what I'm
man.
saying?
So
Let's do it. Hey, these are some friends. We're gonna tell a little stories, let them introduce themselves and all that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and hey man, why don't you roll that intro?
let's go. Let's do it.
Oh yeah. Welcome to Up to It, brothers. Hey, so before we jump in, hey, why don't y'all go ahead? I'm gonna start with Jerry, man. Why don't you introduce yourself, man? Where you living, and all that good stuff, man.
Yeah, appreciate you. Appreciate you guys having us on here. Yep, Jerry Ardwin. I'm living in ATL.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
that's what's up. Hey, Damon, what you got?
All right, Damon Jones here. Uh, Great to be joining the cast for this here episode. Right now, I'm in Houston, Texas,
Oh,
H
that's
Town.
what's nice. H Town, Marcus, where you got?
Yo, what's going on? It is great to have for you guys to have us on here. I'm also joining from Houston, Texas. Yeah, the good stuff.
That's
Cheers.
cool, man. Yeah, definitely. So, hey, just so the listeners, so y'all know, man, these are cats that I grew up with, man, and I don't think I've really told the story, but I was raised in Saudi Arabia with these guys, man. And there's two other brothers who are not on here. I want to give them a shout out, Dwayne and my brother Tay Jate. But these three, were able to make the schedule right now. But hey, so we grew up overseas together, and it was crazy. There weren't that many black folks over there. And we bonded, man. I mean, because we the brothers. That's what we know, and that's what we were known as and are, the brothers. And so want to just have them come on and tell a little bit about their experience growing up in Saudi. The unique thing is Damon and Marcus. They how far apart? How far away was it? 45 minutes, D?
Let's say an hour.
About an hour? Yeah, they lived in Abcake, and me and
Oh,
Jerry lived in Daharan. Marcus like they heard that word to me, right? And but we will always connect. It was Damon, man. Damon's a connector, man. That's just who he is. But so hey, Jerry, when did you end up getting over to Saudi? You remember when you first got there?
Yeah, I hit 79, second grade, and
Dang.
we were living in North Camp. And matter of fact, I met Watson like the day after I arrived. He came to the crib.
Shout out Norm. I forgot Norm, man. And how can I forget Norman? Norm, Jamaican, the Jamaican brother. Uh,
Yeah,
man, family. And Damien, when did you get out there? You and Marcus.
I want to say 83 was
no, 82, man.
was it 82? Well,
82.
it was December of 82, and I remember it instinctively because it was about 10 days before my ninth birthday. I don't know if it was my ninth or 10th. I think my 10th birthday. So just before I was turning 10, in just a few days, imagine throwing into a completely different environment coming from small city, Louisiana, to the deserts of Arabia. Me and Marcus are brothers as well. So
What's interesting is, some of you have met my son Zion, some of you haven't. But I thought it'd be really cool for him to be able to hear us just conversate and hear some of the things because I talk about you guys all the time. He knows about y'all. Him growing up, that's just always the brothers. We did this, the brothers. Freaknik. Baton Rouge. You know what I'm saying? ATLE, all that, right? But what was it, Marcus? What was the experience like for you, man, growing up in in Abcake. I mean, what was it like out there? Because you guys were like a little bit of a smaller camp than we had.
I mean, I growing up in Abcake was, I mean, like, yeah, Daharan's a big city, but I just know that we had the better baseball team. Sorry about it, but I mean, I don't know. The little bits that I think about versus not growing up in the Middle East is crazy. Like, yes, we've got some great, anti-aircraft guns that sit outside, just outside the fence, and that was, a point of solace. Particularly, when there was a lot of things that were being shot around, and the fact that there was a Patriot battery that was up the street and over to the right, just outside of camp, it made it feel a little bit more like home. But
That's so true.
I just because I mean I had some reservations about coming on just because it's definitely something I've never really talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was definitely different from the time in which I moved back to the United States. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, you know what? You're better off to just keep this stuff to yourself. So.
I hear you. Yeah, it's interesting. Jerry said this before y'all came on. He was like, "Man, when you invited me on and to talk about," he was like, I ain't really thought about it a lot. And
Exactly.
you were bringing up some things. I mean, thinking about it brought up some things for him, not necessarily bad or good, or good, but we just don't really reflect on it sometimes on like how I like to. I tell people because I speak, as you all know, we're privileged Black men, to have the opportunity that we did, that our parents, took for us, to be able to grow up overseas and even to go to boarding school. A lot of forgot about it. It's crazy, man, right? But
Yes, it is.
But Jerry, what was your experience like, man, from what you can recall?
Well, like Marcus said, when you first get there, you're thinking to yourself, like, where in the world? Because you remember when we first got there, you remember you drive from the airport or you drive into town and there was a whole bunch of shanties on the side of the
Yeah.
road. It was like you were in a different world, a different planet, and then everybody was wearing sandals and thobes and it was hot, and in the landscape there was no greenery, coming from Houston at the time. Um, it just kind of blew my mind. But to be honest with you, I think you would all agree, after a certain point, coming back to the States felt like I was going, as Norman would say, going a foreign, because Saudi was home. You know what I mean? When I was in Saudi, I was like, okay, this, it felt like honestly, it felt like a California, what I thought California was, in the middle of the desert. That's
Mhm.
that's kind of how I thought our vibe was. And coming back to the States was weird for me, to visit cousins and stuff like that. And to Marcus's point, when you move back and you're navigating, because we are Black men, and so you leave Saudi and it's multicultural, and you come back to the States, and all of a sudden, you certainly are a Black man. If you ain't a Black man anywhere else, when you come back to America, on both sides you're Black. So yeah, bringing up Saudi and saying that you grew up there, it's not a good vibe. You like it. Nothing really positive comes out of sharing that with people, regardless of the background that they have. What color they are and all that kind of stuff. So I think that has a lot to do with why I don't ever bring it up. If they ask why do you talk that way, then I try to make something up on the fly. And if I do say it, it's just where I grew up, everybody spoke like this. You know what I mean? Or I'll say I grew up around a lot of white people. But to say, I wait for keys before I even bring it up. If I know that they're somewhat international, then I might.
Mhm.
But outside of that, nah, I don't. You know what I mean? I wouldn't.
So,
I would not.
just to build on what Jerry said, yes. You know what? I work in an industry in which there's a lot of folks from everywhere, right? But will I ever let it be known that I grew up in Saudi Arabia for the company that in which my parents worked with? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
There's no way, unless if and only if um, I can get to know that person to understand. Do you understand what it's like to be outside of either your country or in this country? Then maybe I might consider it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, I grew up, in the sand,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely not something that comes out. And
Yeah.
even I get again hate to go there, but like even after 9/11, because I used to have a certain flag up in my flat, and like I was told to take it down, and that really hurt because it was a flag for the country that I used to play baseball for, and
Mm-hmm.
it really hurt, and that's really when I realized that okay, I'm living in the States. Again, don't get me wrong though. Yes, during the wars, you know what? Pretty much every night we're hosting troops. We're cooking steaks, lobsters, and steak lobster, black eyed peas or orange beans, and a dessert. Because yes, we support our troops, but just in coming back to the States, the reality check was
Hmm.
it was really tough. So
No, I
go
hear
ahead.
you. I hear you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So, just for the listeners, when he says the wars, so we grew up through the Desert Storm when we lived overseas, and our families were still there during Desert Storm, and got to witness and see. We went back during that time. I don't even know why they let us back. That's kind of crazy. But during the war, we would hear Scud missiles and just the war going on. Our families would host. Each of our families would host the military that was there. They would come over to our houses and eat, and we'd go out there also to the fields where they were at in the desert, and chop it up with them and whatnot. So that's when he's talking about wars. That's part of the thing. Situation when we were there. But Damon, what was it like for you, man? I mean, because you guys, like I said, were in Abcake, so I think y'all were the only black family there, right? In Abcake?
So no, there was like two other families. I mean, still like low numbers, right? But I think like overall, like my perspective was probably a little different, just because maybe I don't know, just like the way that I speak with people more. So I guess like from the beginning when we first went there, it was a little scary because it was totally different. But I was like really excited. I was like, oh, like what kind of outfit is this? Because it was like imagine just being completely different from where we came from. So for the first like years, imagine like at the time I was just turning 10 years old. My brother Marcus was just turning like 5 because we're like 5 years apart. So it was really like like impression kind of years for us to go through that big transition. And I think pretty quickly, just because I'm more of a social person, like we locked in and just made friends and just took on the environment as it was. But when it came time to like go other places and just like explaining like, oh, because when I went to college and even high school, everybody was on like, where are you from? Like that's the first question, where are you from? And like, like at first I would, I would be like, either I'm from Saudi, because that was from the majority of our life, that's where we were basically from. And as I was asked that so much, I started to realize that the like travel intelligence of most people probably in the US was quite low. So to try to explain to someone like, you know, that you're what's known as a third culture kid, like most people had no understanding of that. So one of the good things about us growing up that way is like we could be chameleons. So, you know, I could say that really I was from like any place just because, you know, with the ability of travel, I could, you know, depending on, you know, how deep the conversation was going. But yeah, and I guess what I was trying to get to about maybe my perspective being a little bit different is I think I kind of push the envelope a lot of times with like people, you know, in conversations about where you're from or, you know, like how you grew up and so forth, because I would try to get people, and mostly like my Black friends, to explain like, yo, there's so many different types of people that grew up in different kinds of places. Not everybody is the same way, you know, like that you may know. It's a really vast place. And I think a lot of conversations I have hopefully open the perspective of people. So as I have those conversations, that's what I tried to do, be like, yeah, there's a whole nother country. There's like, you know, I got a whole crew of brothers just like me who grew up the same way, that, you know, we're Black and we have different experiences. So
just to build on that though, excuse me, the like for me, again, I'm a little bit younger than everyone else. Well, at least for the bros on the call. Yes, as far as being from anywhere, 110%. I mean, I've been from Atlanta. I've been from Virginia. I've been from New York. I've been from pretty much anywhere that I've got any yins, any of y'all bros. Yeah, I can be from there. Depending on what the conversation is going to be like and who I'm having that conversation with, but also how long do I see this vision going forward with that person? But I definitely think in growing up, you know, across the pond, excuse me, it definitely allows you to be, unfortunately, kind of a chameleon.
Oh, definitely. It's interesting because this might be helpful for my son to understand is, and my family, they always never really understood why I don't talk a lot about my family, meaning Zion and them, a lot, and or people always like to talk to me, which is fine, and you know, I'm an extrovert, but you know, kind of to Marcus's point, for me, it was also like I would get different reactions depending upon who I was talking to, when I was talking to them. And then especially like when we used to travel through like New York, and being in Philly and, you know, sometimes running the streets, you know, people would think that like, ooh, okay, we got to protect ourselves, right? To a certain degree. And Jerry, you know, you've been in Atlanta, you know, you and Damon.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I'm not going to talk a whole bunch about me, and it was a protection thing. So even now with my family, I just don't speak a lot about them because I want to protect them, because that's just the way we grew up. You know, people always, I mean, we all had money, you know what I mean? Our families had money. And I remember sometimes going through New York, man, and I told this cat one time, and this is when I learned, I was like, oh, that's it, no more. Cat wanted to, like, you know, we almost got into a little tussle, you know what I'm saying? Because he thought I had, you know, money and this, that, and the other on me. Because I told him, you know, I was like all proud, like, oh man, yeah, I'm from Saudi Arabia, da da da. And you know, we young, you know what I mean? I'm what, 14 when we first traveling on our own from New York to Saudi. And that's when I learned, I was like, okay, this is cool, but people gonna try to take advantage of you. um, Especially, I think, you know, when I was talking to another brother, and I think that's another wake up call for me too. It's kind of like, damn, well, hold up. these brothers ain't like my brothers that are on this call. I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, we don't all like each other. Hold on, wait, we ain't got each other's back.
Yo, if I could add to that, Gibbs, I apologize.
No, go for it.
Go ahead. Man, so, Zion, what you don't know is my family left a little bit early. We left in '86, so before the war kicked off. So, and that hurt. I did not want to come back to the States, but I fixed it in my mind. I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna come back to America. It's gonna be a whole bunch of black people. They're gonna love me just because I'm black, because that's how we loved each other, in Saudi. Because, and not just because, being black, but it. I put it this way. I remember the very first day that I saw your dad. Very first day in 5th grade. So it meant something. You know what I mean? Like, I remember him walking down the hall, and I double taped because, I knew I was brown, and I just seen another brown dude. Like, you know what I mean? So, but I came back to America thinking, like, black people were going to love me because I was black. And they don't. That did not happen. And it took me a minute to figure that out because, my parents, when we moved back to Houston, two things happened, and I'll pass it on. But, the first thing, they were like, we're going to put you in private school. And we were in Houston, in Missouri City. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to private school. I don't need to go to private school. So they took me to a public school around the way. Son, when I left the public school, I was like, you know what, Dad? You can put me in private school. Yo, I promise you, it looked like it was cats on the wall waiting. Like, yo, when his parents leave, you know what I mean? Because I'm coming from Saudi. I had an S curl. I was looking all European. You know what I mean? And I talk like this. You think? So So that protection thing. When I go out and I'm in areas, I can maneuver now because, like Damon said, like Marcus said, like Gibbs said, becoming a chameleon, you learn quick, get jumped one time. I guarantee you, because these brothers, yo.
Right.
Wildin'.
Just to build one. Just since Jerry went there, yes. So, again, I don't talk about a lot of things much, but yes. So, like, I ended up going to an HCBU, and I made the stupid decision of saying, "So, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from XYZ." "Where's that?" And they're like, I'm like, well, XYZ is, the capital of XYZ or we do this in the Middle East. "Oh, you're rich." And I'm like, no, I ain't rich. Y'all got some, false pretenses, but just the whole illusion of being I hate to say it, an other. An other that you can paint anything that you want to paint. Either, you're an other and you're rich, or you're an other and you're poor. You're an other and you're just a horrible person, and you come from a place where horrible people come from. It was difficult. Like, it was hella difficult. Again, I went to boarding. I went to, I don't even know how to politely put a boarding school, but I went to a high school where, yes, my parents were on the other side of the world. Fine and dandy. But for me, the time going home, flying across different continents and all that type of fun stuff, that was the best part of it. Because then I could see my friends, the people who knew me, not the American me, not the, wherever I'm coming from me, but just the normal person me. I mean, there's a certain location in a certain country, at a certain airport, and it's kind of like they're understood that if you're ever traveling, stop over here, get yourself something to eat, or get yourself, a beverage of your choice. And more than likely, you know what? You're going to end up finding someone that either you knew
Mm-hmm.
or someone who grew up in your generation, and can relate back to everything that you understand and know, uh, because of that, because of that hidden gym location.
That's true.
I want to say it, but I'm gonna leave it alone. You know, something Dom Square maybe. Mess around if you want to. Dude, I just one time I had the kid under the bed. I was so wigged out. Like that's nothing to play with. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I just leave it right there. There's nothing to play
Absolutely.
with.
Absolutely.
So you know what? Just for the listeners, they don't know. I mean, and Zion doesn't either. Really, I mean, from except for what I've told them. But what was it like on our compounds, on our camps? You know what I mean? Like, if you were to explain it verbally, what would you say? I mean, what do we have? What do we not have?
Right. I guess I can take that one to start. So like a lot of times if I get in a conversation with somebody and explain like, living overseas and so forth, the first thing that someone will say, oh, so like you're a military brat. And usually, I may be like, well, something like that, and just let it roll. So they can just think whatever they think about a person who grew up in the military. But for us, I guess it was very similar because the company that our parents worked for was sort of like a military base, which was a compound where all the same other people who work for that same company, them and their families also lived on that same compound. The stores, at least our food store, which was also on that same compound. So that's why so many people had that same experience. The adults as well as the children. We all grew up, and the school as well, the education, which was really a real top education and a privilege for people who were the children of their parents working there, because they employed some of the best teachers, all kind of different specialists and so forth. So we really were able to get one of the best educations that we could. Again, with us, growing up, being Black men, it was a real plus for us. So to take that and grow with it, it's been like, now that we're at an older age, man, we really got something special from that. So, so I guess that's given a little bit of a perspective, kind of like a military base, but I think it was really a lot. We probably had a lot more than maybe what would be on a military base. It was like a pool, like multiple top pools with all the kind of, because it was in the desert, but we still had, access to the swimming pool. And that was our thing. Like we would pretty much outside of school and, be at the pool all the time. Like my Marcus, he played baseball, so he was always, playing baseball. But the pool, we skateboarded around. I guess that's why Jerry was saying like it was kind of like a California type of vibe. We thought we could skateboard and stuff. I still got scars all around trying to skateboard and BMX and stuff like that. So yeah, so it was and I guess for us, because we're kind of older, this is going back to the 80s, like that was sort of our heyday for at least me, Jerry, and Jamal and Norman. Like the 80s was our time frame, and then Marcus kind of came on like more so the 90s. But one thing I will say, and then I'll pass the mic, is like my lifeline when we were in the Middle East was that when we would come back to the States, I would just get like all the music that I could. Like, I mean, just like tapes, and back then it was tapes, right? And I would just try to buy all of those tapes. We would record. We would have like maybe 2 video recorders that, like, that's how old this was before DVD. We would have like at least 2 video recorders that just played the whole time we were back in the US. And somebody would just keep putting in videotapes of just like BET or just whatever TV stations. And then when we got back to the Middle East, we would just watch those videotapes just like how normal people would watch TV over and over again. But it was funny how that was just like for me, I was like, I would be glued to the music and the culture because I just really felt a need to have something. And that was outside of the brothers. That's how I had kept a connection of sorts.
Hey Jerry, can you speak a little bit to because you was a BMX star, man. You was the one that was winning, you know what I'm saying? Putting a lot of the how you say it? They were surprised when Jerry was winning. They was like, wait a minute, hold up. He ain't supposed to be
right.
But Jerry was BMX, man. He was like, man, he was top tier, like number one, and we had a BMX track. So what was that like how did you even get into that?
Thanks, Gibbs. You know what? I really don't know. Someone around me probably had a bike, and I went and saw them racing, and that's, I guess, I honestly I don't remember how I got into BMX, but yeah, that was fun. That was for a while that's all I wanted to do. You know what I mean? But yeah, I honestly I don't remember how I got into it. And as far as like getting decent at it, one thing that I realized though, Gibbs, and I appreciate the accolades that you gave me. I was good in Daharan. You know what I'm saying? I was good in Daharan.
Got you.
Because I came back to the States and on a bigger platform. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never tried to race, but it was, I was really, really comfortable in Daharan, and I was able to master that track to a certain degree.
Right.
But just being honest with myself and because all of y'all know I can get mad big headed, so I'm trying to be humble. But yeah, just realizing with myself, like I was really good because even like when I met Damon for the first time, I was in Abcape to go to their BMX track.
Oh,
and
wow.
I saw their track, and their track was asphalt. And I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, no. I'm not racing this. I don't know. Because I understand falling. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to happen. And all I could think is like a big old raspberry on my face. Falling. I was like, no. I'm not. But I mean, the one thing I talked a lot about coming back to the States and some of the hardships, but one thing, and I guess you guys would all agree with this, like the freedom that we felt, in the compound was, I mean, it was worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely.
One of the things that they didn't say, Zion, is like, our camp on Daharan was pretty big. Abcake was big too, so they had buses that drove around the camp.
Just to cut in for a second,
Yeah.
for Zion, I don't know if you understand the context of Dahran, Abcake, Yulia, Rastanura, or anything like that, but it's kind of like, so Dahran, right, where your dad grew up, is kind of like New York. Rastanura is kind of like LA. Bukake, where I grew up, Abcake, is kind of like Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, y'all did well. I don't know if I would have made it out of that thing.
but it's the only way that I can kind of try to convey the.
Yeah.
There's a contrast between every one of them.
Definitely, that's cool.
So, like RT. So the LA version of it is, hey, we're living on the beach. What are we gonna do at night? We're gonna go on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas Dahran, it's kind of like, we're living in New York City. What are we gonna do? We're gonna, I don't know, go walk the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Bukake, Oklahoma, we're gonna
One thing I'll say,
we're gonna have a good time. But I go ahead, sir. I didn't want to steal your thunder, man.
No. That's all right. That's all right. And big respect on the pronunciation. That beautiful.
Right.
Oh man, Daharan. I was like, what? Nah, I'm just messing with you. I love you, dude. Yeah, but so the buses are free, dude. These are like Mercedes buses where you just stand at the bus stop and you get on and sit down. You know what I mean? And if you wanted to go to a payphone, you don't put no money in it. You just pick the phone up and dial whoever you wanted to dial.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
It was. I don't know about you guys, but it was La La Land. It was like
sure.
I have to say, hats off to you for growing up in the States, because it's a different animal out here. You know what I mean? Like where we grew up, it kind of points to what your dad was saying about talking to that dude at 14, you know, in New York. Like, I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but I feel like, you know, you don't become an opportunistic person growing up in Saudi, because everybody had everything that they wanted. Nobody went without. Everybody had their mom, their dad. They were making money. They had a house. They could get food. Like the only restraint that you had is that once a year was when you could go back to the States and get everything you wanted. Because once you got back to Saudi, you know, in our day, like Kobar, wait, hold on. Al Khobar, you know what I mean? You wasn't you weren't gonna get no, you know what I'm saying? Like now Gibbs was smart because he got tailored clothes. Like that was smart. But outside of getting your stuff tailored, like you weren't getting no OP, Ocean Pacific or Vans, or you know what I'm saying? Like you could get a Kobar special, you know what I mean? But it wasn't.
And you was gonna get joned on. You was gonna get
right. You know, it's like, I don't know about you. This is the last thing I'll say is I used to have a hard time with my parents because I always wanted Vans. And we would come back to the States and they would go into what's the place's budget shoe store and buy me some World Cups. I was like, yo, what's a World Cup? You need the red tag on the back, Dad, and the Vans on the side, but I can't wear its World Cups from Payless shoe store. What? Anyway, but we really had like this freedom to just be kids and to not care. Like
absolutely,
we could run around and sneak out at night and just walk the street. We used to have fun with the security guards. They would chase us for fun. You know what I mean? And it was. We were really, like your dad said, we were really blessed. You know, the luck of the draw for us as kids to be able to grow up there was just amazing. And you know, honestly, looking back, I do remember some slight racism, but for the most part, like
it was rare.
Yeah, you just didn't think about it. You didn't, you know, I knew I was black and I didn't have the, you know, the hair to do that. But you know, but I mean, outside of that, it wasn't that big of a deal. There's, again, small incidents, you know, like some girl's dad might be like, yo, you can't date him. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But you know,
go ahead, sir.
No, I'm done, bro. I'm done.
No, man. I feel like that was 110% a minority. Like, I'm thinking of two individuals, and it was what the parents said and what the children believed were two different things. But even still, it was definitely a really small minority. For me, from my perspective, at least when I was growing up over there, it was more so either A, you're a Yank, or, you know, Yank, aka being you're someone who's from the, you know, from the States or from Europe, and but not even that, being a Yank or not being a Yank, it was more so, are you a good person or are you a bad person? And for that was really the byline between everything. Either, hey, we're going to go out and hang out with XYZ, or ZYX. But if you're a good person or a bad person, it's like, you know,
like my
go ahead and roll out.
my age range was different because, especially being in Abcake, where I think it's a little different there because the majority of the people were from like Texas, Louisiana.
Yeah.
The majority of the people were from like, deep South.
Okay.
And like at the age time when I was there, it was, I remember it being more like heavier racism, which is why, like, when I linked up with you guys, I was like, oh man, finally, some other people I can kick it with.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, my time frame was a little different, but probably not as bad as actually in the US, but a lot of people had those same values and racism type values that they carried over. And it was also with their kids as well. But, as I got older and started to learn more just about people and places and so forth, I was able to bypass that. But at a young age, with like being the only, like in most of my classes, I was the only Black person, the only one, and most of the time in school, it was like me, Marcus, and like there was another Black guy, and then like maybe 2 or 3 girls in our whole school. So, like we had to fight it out a few times, and we had to like stand up for ourselves. But yeah, I mean, even to this day, like as people try to catch up, oh, hey, remember me? I'm like, yeah, I remember you. You were like not cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I remember you. Yeah. So, I guess it all depends on the time and place, but yeah, that's like, but as a whole, I wouldn't say that I'm bitter about the situation by any means, but there was some racism, and the funny thing is, like, the racism was from people who were from the same places that we were from. You know what I mean? Like the people who were, like we were in someone else's country and they were like cool with us.
But not to cut you off, Damon, but I think that, I mean, like a lot of the stuff that I see here now that I live in America is pretty crazy. But like growing up, it was more so, again, yeah, you might be from here, you might be from there, but what is your perspective? And I don't necessarily see a lot of folks taking a perspective. Now that I'm back in the States, I see more so folks saying, okay, this is where we're going, and I might as well just jump on. But I don't see as many folks like taking a perspective, like, again, like I said earlier, we all have friends from, pick a continent, pick a country. Yes, we have friends from there. And we also, but it's not that necessarily that we have friends from there or best friends from there. It's more so, were you and are your perspectives that of being a good person, bad person, indifferent person? And at least for me, that's where pretty much everything goes back to.
I guess I wonder, when I share my story, and people ask me about, racism, Jerry touched upon one thing, and I tried to bring it up with one of the Aramco brats, and they didn't know anything about that incident, Jerry. When I mean, that's the one that I remember. When I think we realized, like, okay, wait a minute, this is different, and we can't. Not everybody's going to accept us. Again, that was one of those kind of punches in the gut, especially because you was my boy, and I'm like, wait a minute, but Jerry's a number one BMXer and OP Van Out and pretty boy, and wait, you mean he can't date? Da 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 da. I was like, hold up. I was like, man, I was taken aback, bruh. I know we both were hurting. We were like, what? But but outside of that, again, it was the white folks coming from the US and living there, right? But when I share with people, like, from the Saudis, though, it was love. I don't know if that was your all's experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100.
No matter what, they loved us, man. They loved our parents, from what I understood, especially my dad. But they, I don't know, there was a kindred spirit there, or whatever it was. But from the Saudis, it was nothing but love.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one of the last times I was in Saudi. This made me feel good. I was in Kobar, and I was walking, and this little kid came up to me, and he was Arab, and he just like started talking to me in Arabic. You know what I mean? And it just, and I was like, yo, you know, I was like, Ana Arabi Mabzain. You know what I mean? And he just looked at me like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? It was just like, but you know, it felt good for someone to assume that I was from there, and that I have to assume that. Well, I want to assume that he thought I was Arab. I was from
Local.
there. I was, you know what I mean, local,
Mhm.
and and that feels good. And I'll tell y'all this, like my family and I have had opportunity to go back overseas to UAE and to Oman, and even in both places, I would ask somebody, like, I remember I asked this one guy, I said, I wanted to get they don't call them thobes in the UAE. I forget what they call them, but I was, I said, can I buy one of those? Yeah, they don't call them thobes. I mean, they do. They call them, like in Oman, they call it a dish dash, but I can't remember the name that they used in the UAE. They do use the word thobe, but it's but yeah. So I asked, I said, can I get one of those? And the dude looked at me like I was stupid, and he was like, what are you talking about? It's like I said, yeah, I'm not from here. He said, oh, he said, you have Arab face. You know what I mean? And I was like,
That's what's up.
and then if you go to Oman, Oman used to they had an empire, and there was slave trade in the Middle East. So but there's a lot of black, like African descent Arabs that live in Oman. And another time I was in Oman, and the dude let me go ahead of him. I said, yo, thank you. I appreciate you letting me go. He's like, no problem. I was like, well, I'm in your country, and, I'd really appreciate it. I want you to know. He was like, what? He's like, no, man. He's like, I thought you were one of us.
Mm.
And it felt good.
That's
I was like, nah, I was like, you can consider me a distant cousin, but I'm not from here. You know what I mean? But
That's cool.
to your point with the Arabs, like it, on many occasions they were just like, Jerry, like, what is this black thing you keep talking about?
Mhm.
What is that? Like,
So true.
Yes.
it's so that felt good. You know what I mean? I miss
Right.
that. I miss that.
So like I would say, like, the place that I felt the most at home at is actually, it's in the Middle East. Like when I'm in the States, yeah, you know what, I can be a really good what is that, faker, or but when I'm in the Middle East, you know what? Again, I've been told that I'm from Jordan. I'm an Iraqi. I'm Somalia. Pick any word that speaks Arabic. Yes, I've been told that I'm from there, and you know what? I can roll with it. Coming back to the States, I've been purported to be from several different locations, but no.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. Yeah. So it definitely exists. And yeah, I think I've heard other people on pods and different places talk about, there was one African woman who talked about, like, she didn't understand what, being black was until she got to the US and then had to figure it out. So yeah, your points are all well taken. Hey, I'm curious to know, for Zion to hear this. Actually, what boarding schools did you guys go to? Right. So let the listeners know, because I don't know. I think Zion knows, I believe. But Damien, where'd you end up?
Well, St. Johnsbury Academy.
Jerry?
St. J, baby.
And Marcus?
Blair Academy, Blairstown, New Jersey.
I forgot.
Rock and roll.
Yes.
Just one other thing about Blairstown. So the original, what is that, Friday the 13th? Is that
Oh,
a
yeah.
movie?
Mm-hmm.
So the original Friday the 13th was filmed on our campus,
Really?
down by the lake. Yes, it was. And the one, stop red light that we had, yes, that was also in the movie. And also the diner where we all used to go and randomly get food was also in the movie. So yes,
That's so true. So true.
let's go.
Yo,
Bucks.
Gibbs, wasn't
Let's go Bucks.
Amityville filmed in St. J? Or am I bugging? Am I
No,
just
I
trying
think
to
it was.
one up Marcus?
You're right. No. I think it was. I think it was. It definitely. Yeah, I believe somebody had told us that.
Yeah, I thought I
all
heard
the
that.
We're like, yeah, we got some movies in St. J. But hey, David, I cut you off. But yeah, tell them a little bit about St. J, man. I mean, where was that? 'Cause, I mean, I went there too. So the three of us went to school
Right.
high school.
Well, St. Johnsbury Academy in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, is where four of us went to school. And actually, the only reason why I went there is because I'm younger than Jamal, Jerry, and Norman. And I followed those three guys who were already going to school there. And they pretty much didn't give me a choice on where I could go. So I talked my parents into sending me to school to Vermont, which was actually, like after I got there, I had to consider, was that really the best decision? Because that meant going from the middle of the desert to basically the Arctic, what would be equivalent of the Arctic. And it was nice for like maybe 2 or 3 weeks when we first got there, but then it was winter for like pretty much the rest of the year. And like a kind of winter that I guess we had a kindredship because it was a boarding school, so other students from other countries and different places. So most of the other Black students were from the Caribbean, and the Caribbean and Bermuda. So we really, or at least we linked with a lot of the Bermudians, and all of us had the same detest for the cold weather. So they used to just call me the bear because I would just be like a bear and want to hibernate and be grumpy all the time. Like my first experiences with boarding school wasn't very good. I basically was campus pretty much every weekend in the beginning because I had my own way about doing stuff. Yeah.
That's right. I remember that. Well, you got to explain what campus means. Like you're grounded. Like you can't like go off and do anything.
You couldn't leave the campus. So
Damon could not.
Yeah.
Damon could not keep his room clean for nothing.
Yeah. Which and to be kind of spoiled, like we weren't really so used to picking up after ourselves. That's why it was an issue. Like we were used to having.
Wait, you mean nobody's
boy.
coming to clean this up?
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
So, the houseboy ain't coming to clean my room.
Exactly.
So yeah,
exactly.
I didn't work well. It took me some time to figure that one out.
He got it though. He got it down though. He figured it out.
But I will say the brothers set me up nicely. I walked into it, even though I came. So I was a freshman. You guys were you guys juniors when? Yeah. You guys.
Yeah. We had 2 more. Yeah.
So I basically, even though I was a freshman, and I'm sure Zion, you know this, like with your high school, everybody picks on the freshmen and everybody want to diss the freshmen. Well, since all my brothers were already there as juniors, I was basically automatically a junior too. So like I went to the prom all 4 years. I was in. So yeah, good salute to y'all for putting me in place for sure.
And Marcus, how was it at Blair? Because we had a lot of former Ramcons, brats that went there.
I mean, at Blair, I mean, I would like to say everything was cool. Like, I always played baseball, so like, I'm a jock, so like I'm a sports player. I didn't learn about American football until I got to Blair, and again, I play baseball. Physically, yeah, you can come and try to test me, but it's probably not going to end up that well for you. But again, I've got all my baseball crew, and I've also got the football crew, and they're like, okay, yeah, go ahead. You want to get in a fight with them? Yeah, go for it. Bravo, go for it.
Right.
We'll see how it's going to end up. But I mean, for me, like boarding school was great. I've met some of my definitely the best friends of my entire life. I met them at boarding school.
Yes, sir.
Like 110%. I mean, like we've got some guys who are from from Jersey. We got a couple guys from Jersey. We got a couple guys from Philly. We got a couple guys who live out east. But the one constant was never where are you from, what language do you speak, or anything like that. It was more so, again, are you a good person, bad person, or are you just one of those bad people who begin with an A? And that's kind of how we kept it rolling. But yeah, I mean, when I went to boarding school, yes, I went in as a freshman, so I didn't have any big brothers or anything like that. But when I did go in, yes, there were some folks, they tried, they took their shot. But again, me and the crew that I met, freshman year was like, okay, cool. Yeah. You know what, man, if you want to pick on us, then we're going to pick right back. So pick whichever one you want, but we're probably going to whip your tail. And ultimately that's what happened.
Right.
Nice.
Makes sense. So what was the experience like? Because Jerry, yours was unique. I know, of course, I'm condensing things here because you came out and then left and then came back, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your overall experience like in St. J?
I loved it, man. The reason why I went, because what you guys don't know is I went in the middle of 11th grade, so I was in Atlanta going to public school, and quite honestly, I'll just be frank, I was probably failing half of my classes every semester because I was more focused on either fighting or staying out of a fight or fitting in. And finally, my parents, they knew that you guys were going to school in St. J. And basically, one day they pulled me to the side and they were like, "Yep, you're going to boarding school with Jamal and Norman and Damon." And at first, I was kind of didn't want to go, but then I thought about it, and I mean, once I got there, I wasn't in the dorm room with you guys when I first got there. Remember, I was in that other Waterman dorm.
Yeah.
But no, man, what Damon said, you guys had set things up, so well, you and Norman, that, when I got there, it was like, I mean, the only thing that I can conceptualize or say is like, it was like, not red carpet for me, but it was like red carpet for a brother to come in and there was nobody, I mean, there was one kid who didn't like me or us, you know what I'm saying? But that was the only person, like all of the other jocks, and it was just a really, really good vibe. And then I ended up, my first, when I got into the barn with you guys, I ended up making honor roll because, just the positive influence that you guys, like literally, Zion, him and Norman would be like, "Yo, I'm gonna get an A on this test." You know what I mean? And I'm in the dorm room with like, about getting good grades, like, what is this? I wasn't really into it, at first, but then I started getting into it, like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get it. I'm gonna study, and I'm gonna, because every day, what was it, from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8?
7 to 8:30. Yeah, 7 to 8:30.
7 to 8:30, mandatory study. Period. You know what I mean? And these dudes were, Jamal and Norman were serious about these grades. Like, I know that I sound like I sound bad saying this. You know what I mean? I come from a completely different environment where, being smart and getting good grades was not cool. But they were, they were like, yo, what'd you get? He was like, oh man, I got a 93 and was mad. And I was like, okay. Jerry, what'd you get? Yo, my mom called and I got call back. We'll talk about my grades a little bit later. But seriously, I made honor roll because of these guys, and their influence didn't keep me from messing up. But you know what I'm saying? As far as the grades are concerned, because David, you're anyway. Gibbs, if you want to tell that story, we can. But yeah, it was. I loved boarding school. I thought it was great. You're right. The winters were cold. Those icy walkways were detrimental to your health. They provided enough laughs. You know what I'm saying? Like, you hit a pothole, I'm telling you, you'd be vertical and just wow. You know what I mean? But
why were we in the middle of Vermont in middle of winter? Why were like Jamal? You would be rocking some loafers.
Me
That's
too.
why you I'm trying to be in some fancy, like, I don't know what kind of shoes I had on, but like completely not built for the weather. But before we get talking on fashion, which Jerry was basically the king of fashion.
Oh, Jerry was the king of fashion, boy.
But before we get to the fashion part, I do want to tag in on what Jerry was saying. Is like the same thing for me, especially being like one of the younger cats. Like Jamal and Norman were like pushing to make sure it was almost like if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, they were like a father figure, like to like kick my butt to make sure I was studying, make sure I wasn't like giving the brothers a bad name, doing something stupid. Like, so yeah. So it was it was good to have that like mentorship, sometimes. but it was.
And we
sometimes
a double stag. If you get a double stag, like you keep laughing it off like, and he'd be mad. I know I'd be mad. I'd be like, man. And then I thought about getting them back, but then I knew if I gave a double stag, one was coming back when I least expected it. So it was like, and your dad.
That's what I was gonna say. That's where it came from. Like, your dad was like your grandfather, Zion, that he started. Was he ever hitting you with the double stag, or you missed out on that?
Right.
No, I got that.
I'm talking about Zion. Did you?
Oh,
your pops wasn't tagging him up with a double stag?
Nah, he didn't. He didn't tag him up.
Yo, Zion, let me tell you, from back when we were like adolescent teenagers, if we messed up, your grandfather wasn't even my dad. I was just hanging out. If Jamal did something crazy, all of us was getting like punched in the chest, and it was like hard. That like the breath knocked out of you hard. So that's where it all started. Where your grandfather used to give us the beat down for like doing dumb stuff. And if you was just like me, I was just like, but I didn't. I was just there. Yeah, you too. And like if it was just a one arm, that was just a stag. But if he had this thing where it would be like both fists, like right to the chest, and it was like so Jamal and Norman decided to carry that on to St. J, and I was pretty much the brunt of that most of the time because I was the younger one. So yeah, double stag.
Sometimes. Yeah. Oh man, I forgot about you, man. You got my jaw hurting. God damn, man. That's crazy, man. So what happened? So where'd you all end up going to college? So Marcus, where'd you end up going from Blair to?
Oh yeah, so like so I went from Blair to an ACBU, which was an amazing culture shock, to put it lightly. I ended up at Hampton University down there in Virginia, but like I said, culture shock.
Wasn't it on a baseball scholarship though, right?
No, the baseball scholarship that I had was to go to South Carolina, but I turned that down because At some point, we're going to go with our true love, which was some random young lady from New Jersey that I'd met, the year before trying to go to baseball camp. Yeah, stupid. I had my parents wanted me to take the scholarship. Yeah, probably could have worked out. But I was like, I don't want to play baseball because we broke up. Oh, but yes. So I went from Blair down to Hampton Roads, Virginia, just across the street from Norfolk. And I think it was the biggest. It was the biggest culture shock that I've had. Yes, moving to the States and having to live in the States was a culture shock. Yes, that was huge. But living going to school down here in the States, it was. I think a lot of that has made it unfortunately, to the person that I am now. Like, I don't talk about home ever. It's definitely made me a lot more of a guarded person on what it is that I say, what it is that I do, and what it is that I influence. Because
interesting.
It was almost like, yes, 110%. I know that I'm an American, and I love this country. And even like, growing up during the Gulf Wars, yes, we'll go out and we'll feed the troops. We'll bring them home to the house and we'll make food for them. But all of that was more so kind of on the we team, like we as Americans. But when I came back to the States, particularly like when I went to university, it was definitely not we are all the same. It was more so you are one of those outsiders, and it was absolutely horrific. Like,
it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, I mean, like it hurt, but it hurt like something like that's never, like, I've never had a hit like that before, because
Like,
I mean,
it's coming from, yeah.
no, like growing up, it's like, okay, yeah, we're Americans, yeah, you're an American troop, yeah, come on over, yeah, we're gonna have some red beans and dirty rice tonight, and we're gonna cook a steak, and we're gonna make some dessert, and you can call your family from here on us. But coming back, it was more so like people thought of me, and they were like, well, you're one of them. And I'm like, who the hell is them? And they're like, you're one of them people that I see on the TV. And I'm like, okay, idiot. Pick a country. What country? I don't know a country. Bless you. Bless your little heart. But then it's like, well, why do you hate them? It's because you're one of them. And I'm like, I'm one of who? And just trying to get through that part of it made really coming back to the States and really going back to an HCBU. I mean, it was horrible. And I wouldn't, and I hate to say it, Hampton, HU, love you to death, but from my perspective, no. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
I hear you. No, I hear you, man. Thanks for sharing.
But more so, particularly coming from a boarding school, because yeah, the dorm room perspective, but like I remember one of my English teachers was like, "Hey, write a letter back to your kinfolk back at your high school," and I did that. What I put into that was probably not what they expected, So I basically told him, hey, you know what? You made it through high school, man. You can debate. It's a wrap. And for my English teacher, it went over like a box of rocks. So she called me in, and she asked me to explain my perspective. And I told her that this is all a bunch of crap. You're not teaching up to where you need to be. I mean, I had a very frank conversation with her, and she was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay. So do you want me to send this back to Blair?" And she's like, "No, please don't." And I'm like, "Isn't that part of the exercise?" She's like, "Yes," but she's like, "Please don't." And then I think after that, a lot of things for me, unfortunately, came a bit sour. So I don't know. I don't want to take up everyone's time, but y'all go ahead.
No, you're good, man. You're good. No, thanks for sharing. I think a lot of times, and I think this was what's pretty cool about this opportunity is, I mean, we haven't, Norman, Dwayne, and Tay, all of us haven't gotten together and had an opportunity to even debrief kind of a lot of the stuff that we've been through and what our experiences were, and what it really meant to us and the good times, you know what I mean, and all that good stuff. Because there's definitely a lot more good, I feel, than.
Oh yeah.
But we've all been challenged, though, But no, Marcus, man, thanks, man. No, thanks for opening up and sharing that, man.
No worries, man.
Jerry, so where'd you end up going to college?
Same thing. I went from St. J to a HBCU, Southern University. And to put it in perspective, I went from, what was it, 1% minority. So that means everything: Black, Asian, all 1% minority, to an HBCU where everybody looked like me. You know what I mean? Same skin tone, complexion, and all of that. And funny thing to add to that, my dad brought me to college, and you guys remember my dad, brother, got me to the dorm room, was like, "All right, I'm out," and he just left. You know what I mean? So I'm, again with the S curl and the and the patent leather shoes on, and just not fitting in. Damon, I should have grabbed some of your gear. I would have been a little bit better prepared, because Damon, you know what I mean? But here, I'm at an HBCU. I'm meeting people from Chicago, Atlanta, and all these different places. And I'm Mr. Preppy. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
Jerry
you
was
know what
clean,
I mean?
boy. Jerry was clean.
I was clean until I got to Southern. When I got to Southern, they was like, "Man, what kind of brother are you?" And they didn't say brother. They was like, "What kind of enemy is you?" I'm like, "The same kind that get followed across the store like you." Like, I'm the same. But I'm just, but I learned a lot. And I think I would probably was extremely malleable, because I've never really shared this with you guys, but one thing that I really truly appreciate about us as brothers is that this is the one place where I do not wear a mask ever with you guys. You guys know who I was, the good, the bad, getting drunk in sixth grade, seventh grade, you know what I mean? Trying to snort the white baseball line on the baseball. You remember that? All of that. Y'all know me. You know what I mean? So this is one place where I don't have to wear a mask, but because I did wear the mask a lot, when I got to Southern, I picked that up too. You know what I mean? And it was a good learning experience, and it made me who I was. But I was trying extra hard to be a real brother, and I had no idea what that meant. I just knew what I saw, and I knew what people told me. So to me, that meant being a gangster, and changing, code switching, and doing all of that. And you guys know my story. Damon's experienced some of it. Sorry, Damon, but you know what I mean. So I don't want to say that was bad. It was a blessing that I made it through, but it was really, really good to pick that up and kind of understand that aspect of life. that was so much different from, you know, a St. J or a Saudi or, you know, even Atlanta in the suburbs where I grew up. So yeah, that was, and then tie this up real quick. I stayed at Southern for 2 years, and then I transferred to Morris Brown and finished here in Atlanta, and that was better because, you know, I found the Island Connect, and I think we tend to. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but I think as kind of like foreigners, we tend to link with Islanders really well because that, you know, not completely belonging kind of,
Yeah.
you know, it kind of fits. You know what I'm saying?
Got you.
International kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, no
Exactly.
doubt. No doubt.
So just to build on what Jared was saying, again, I didn't realize that you had the opportunity to go to an HCBU as I did. Particularly coming out of a boarding school, I will paint it as a quote unquote unique opportunity. Like it was, yeah. For me at least, rough is not even the word for it. Like, you know, if you wanted me to go and be pick a country where the U.S. is fighting at, and you wanted someone to be a frontline infantryman, you know what? Hell yeah, let me go. Please get me the hell out of here. But as far as going back to the international kids, so like, yeah, I guess that was my first year. Yeah, in Harkins. So like my first year, right? Like, I mean, it was, you know, so coming from a boarding school, you kind of you're used to growing up away from family and stuff like that. But when I got to university, there were so many folks that like, oh my goodness, this is my first time away from my, you know, from my Mima. It's like, okay, so we've been here for 2 weeks, and this is the longest time you've ever been away from your family? Yes. It's like, ooh, okay, I'm gonna keep my words to myself. Yeah. But then, like, you know, Joker started like cutting off like the bottom portion of the shower curtain, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here, man? That, and then you had people defecating in the showers, and it's like, okay, you guys have really never left home before. but
dang,
I ended up meeting the cricket crew, right? You know, the folks from not across the pond, but they're south of the pond, right? So like, I met the international kids, St. Kitts and all that type of fun stuff. Hey, you know what? And we were like Jared was saying, we were able to get on like, you know, like $2 on our rocks. We had a great time just because, yes, I might not have grown up in Tunisia or, you know, wherever you're from, but I can relate.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt.
And that's really what got me through, definitely through that freshman year, because I mean, freshman year was absolutely horrible.
That's crazy. So Jones, where'd you DJ? Where'd you end up going?
So I went to school in Atlanta. I started out Morris Brown College, but let me kind of dial it back, because while I was still in St. J, I had the opportunity to visit Jerry as I was trying to figure out where I was going to go to college and so forth. I got the chance to go visit Jerry and since both of us are from Louisiana, my dad also, he went to Southern University where Jerry was at. So that was one of the places where he was basically saying, why don't you go to Southern? So I went to go visit Jerry a few times. And even though we had a lot of fun, well, I don't know if I'd describe it as fun at first, because like, and that kind of, I guess this kind of ties back to what Marcus and really all of us, even though we were, you know, like we grew up in this foreign country. We were away from our parents for, like years. And like we grew up just kind of with a lot of like learning really quickly. But when on some things we were very green about, I was super green about like a lot of things that other people, understood more, like how to act, I guess in just different environments. So when I went to go visit Jerry, I was way behind. I was way behind on a lot of things. I remember, for one, like I remember dancing with this at this club Jerry took me to, and just like the style of dance that they was on then, whoo, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Woo, yeah, I was like, Jerry, this is great. That was Southern U. But yeah, we had like, it's probably for another me and Jerry were like kindred spirits, because I went to go visit Jerry at Southern. We had, a lot of different things that went on there. But then I decided to go to school in Atlanta, and Jerry left Southern, and he also went to school in Atlanta. So we were there together, and I was able to learn off a lot of experiences that he already had at Southern, because Atlanta was somewhat similar. So that was helpful for me. And we were roommates for a good period of time. And I mean, we got crazy stories that, like I said, is probably for a whole nother session.
Yeah.
But with Atlanta, like I actually, for me, it was no other option than to go to a HBCU. And it was just because, like, just a different perspective, I guess. But even though it was difficult, I was like ready to jump in to like study, to be able to study something different, like other than, what I would have probably had at a different type university. But it was, all in all, it was good for me to go to school in Atlanta, where I went to Morris Brown College to begin with, and then Clark Atlanta after that. But the whole HBCU environment, completely different than St. Johnsbury, how it was. And it took a lot of like understanding how to be as a person, like just where people they just couldn't comprehend who you were and how you act as a person. So, that was kind of a molding experience of sorts. But again, just that whole chameleon was very helpful, of being able to be in different kind of places and still being able to just fit in. So like I was able to, like, I was friends with like so many different kind of people. And I guess just because I'm like a social, just like Jamal, a social extrovert, like I joined all kind of clubs, and I would like, I was just a different type of cat. I remember like wearing a tie, around campus, and people were like, what is, like people that like, they never seen anybody in a tie other than like, somebody like on TV or something, and it was just, it was a trip. But I did have a pretty good experience. But a lot of, I learned so much, like not just education wise, but like emotional education and like physical education. Just being in Atlanta, there was parts that was very difficult, but it grows us as a person. So, but also with being with Jerry was a big plus. I mean, we went to a lot of stuff together. Me and this brother was a big help. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. To add to that, one thing that I never shared with you, my son just busted in on the come in here and say hello. Put you in my office. Come here. This is Lee.
Hey, what's up?
Big now, man. Last time I saw you with Swab, that what?
Yeah. Yeah, I got the headphones on, so he can't hear you guys. Everything all right? Okay. He's been upstairs skateboarding in the house. Let me finish this, buddy, and then I'm gonna come upstairs and hang out. Okay. All right. But yeah, what I wanted to say is, you know, from all of you guys, I just to give you your flowers while we're on here. You know, one thing that Damon taught me that you might not realize it, but Damon was really good at setting boundaries, and I think that that's extremely healthy. You know, we used to razz you in the back in the day about, you know, asking for gas money to get a ride with you, but honestly, but like real talk, that was good setting boundaries. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like now that I'm older, you know, Damon wasn't going to just let even us just run him, and that's, you know,
That's
whereas
true.
I probably would have been like, no, man, I got you, trying to be cool or trying to be whatever. But Damon set really good boundaries. You know
He
what I'm
always did
saying?
that.
Same thing, you know, Gibbs and Marcus. You and I haven't had an opportunity to really like hang like that. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The love
Mhm.
you showed me at the reunion, you know what I mean? It
Absolutely, man.
yeah, you know, it was like